Welcome everyone to this webinar of CSAP Corner Toronto chapter. Myself Nilesh Shah. I am the chapter lead and founder of CSAP Corner Toronto chapter. Today's webinar on SharePoint Loves DevOps is presented by Joseph Velliah. I will transfer to him now.
Hello everyone, good morning. This is Joseph Velliah for today's webinar. So I'm going to present how SharePoint loves DevOps. And so just to give a quick intro about myself, I am the author of SharePoint Writer. So let me close this screen. I think I have to close all this.
We can see the slides, Joseph.
You can see the slides? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, fine. So I'm the author of SharePoint Writer website, and I'm one of the C# Corner MVP. And if you look at my website, you can find that in feeds part that is listed as one of the top 75 websites you can follow for SharePoint in 2019. So I'm in the 32nd rank, I guess. So please feel free to connect with me through Twitter, LinkedIn, and WordPress. So this is our agenda for today. What is current build and deployment process and why it is required? And then what are the current issues what we are facing in the current SharePoint framework or any SharePoint deployment, right? And different deployment options. Continuous build and deployment, how it is going to help. That is one thing which we are going to see. And then what is the benefit we are going to get when you go with CI/CD pipeline. And then some points we have to consider, because a few scenarios you may not be able to cover, or your organization requirement may not suit for few scenarios. So that is something we will check. And then I will show you a quick demo on how to set up DevOps for SharePoint Framework in Azure. And then we will go the question and answer session. So as you can see in this diagram, right? So generally for any SharePoint framework deployment, right? So you will have, for example, you have a requirement to build a leave application using SharePoint Framework solution. So couple of developers going to work on it, and once the development is done, so they are going to package that, and then they will send the package to the administrator. So with the deployment instruction and the deployment artifacts, and then admin team is going to review the deployment package and the instructions given in that. So once it is verified, some companies will use Office 365 CDN. Some companies will use some CDN servers like Akamai. So they will publish the artifacts in the CDN file, CDN servers, and the app in the app catalog, that is within the SharePoint app catalog. So this is what they will repeatedly they'll do. So once it is deployed, it will be published in site A, site B, site C with different owners. They will be able to install that app from the app catalog. So this is the general deployment process in any SharePoint framework deployment. Okay, so if you take a look at this area, right? So before it is installed in a particular site, so there will be, during your QA or UAT, there will be multiple issues you will be bug fixing, or some changes whenever client requests. So you will be doing the same process. Again, the developer is going to change the code, and even if you change a small line of code, that will be packaged by the developer, and then it will be given to the admin team, and the same process he is going to continue. So this is what the regular job admin used to do. So just to avoid with DevOps, right, with the modern software industry standard, so now DevOps is something became very vital. So so with DevOps, continuous integration and deployment, we are going to save a lot of time in this process, especially in the deployment process. We are going to save a lot of time. So if you look at the previous diagram, as I mentioned, these are all the top issues. It's time consuming. It's a manual deployment, complex app upgrade process. Sometimes, let's say you have deployed an app in multiple site collections. So upgrading that app, again, it is going to take more time. So with additional 2 properties in SharePoint Framework, I will show you how we are going to avoid that. So the first property in deploying, right, and SharePoint Framework solution include client assets. So when you do this, right, when Microsoft introduced this, what it generally does, when you package your SharePoint Framework solution, whatever files that needs to be deployed in your CDN, that will be included within the package, and when you deploy that in the app catalog, it is going to save that in your Office 365 CDN. If the CDN is not set, then it is going to save that in a library within the app catalog, so that you don't need to deploy that particular artifacts in your CDN servers. So this is just one-click kind of deployment. This property is a very useful property for that. And then skip feature deployment. When you enable this particular property in your solution, right? So what is going to happen, as you can see here in this diagram, when you say true to this particular property, so when you deploy the app, it is going to ask you a question like, can I make this solution to all sites, available to all sites? So this is what it is going to ask the admin. So in the moment when he selects this and deploy this, so this app is going to be available in all the site collections in your tenant. So it's not only, that means the user does not require to go and install the app in the view all site contents page and then add it. So it will be directly available in the web parts gallery. So you can edit any page and directly add the web part in your page. So that is the advantage of this. Sometimes what happens is, whenever you deploy an app, let's say it's something mandatory app, right? That should be enabled in your sites, in all the sites. And if you think users should not remove that app, then this deployment approach will be good, because when you go to view all site contents page, you will not be able to see that app at all, but it will be available in your web part gallery. So for that reason, maybe you can use this feature. At the same time, if you want to deploy an app throughout the tenant, so I think this will be a very useful feature. There is one other way to deploy. If the user should not delete an app from the view of second page, what you have to do is you will be installing the app in the app catalog and then deploy it from there. I will send you a different link for that. I have written an article about that. There is an out-of-the-box way to select which site collection you wanted to deploy, what is the managed path you have to select, and if you have to deploy that app in a specific site template, that is also possible using that. But with this approach, you can do it tenant-wide, but the out-of-the-box approach, you cannot do it in all the site collection, because the site collections will get created every now and then. So that is not possible. But with this property, you will be able to deploy a SharePoint Framework application, a solution throughout the tenant. So with the continuous build and deployment process, right? So as we mentioned, so the entire packaging is taken care by Azure DevOps. So the only thing what we are going to do is we are going to just check in the code, and we are going to configure the continuous build and deployment template in your repository. So that is going to take care of what all needs to be done. So this is how these are all the tasks generally we used to do when we package the app. As you can see here, first the developer will get the source code and he will install all the modules like npm install, and then he will make some code changes, then bundle the project and then package it, and till here this is developer's job, and then upload app package to app catalog, that is admin's job, deploy app, So these are all the things done by SharePoint admin. So here, this is just a session just to show how continuous build and deployment can be configured quickly in Azure DevOps for SharePoint solutions. But we can also integrate test cases with this. So suppose if you want to run a test case, right? So that is also something can be done within this continuous build and deployment process. So once it is done, we can also notify the users, right? For example, if you want to notify some set of users, that is also something possible with this build pipeline. So with this, the advantage, it reduces admin and dev efforts with no additional asset hosting required for this, because Office 365 CDN, right? That is something you can enable. So with the include property, what we discussed, so you don't need a separate CDN server. So that is going to include your assets within that. And then our organization will have a good control, right? So now if you take a look at the SharePoint development and deployment approach in different companies, you don't have much control. So they will be keep deploying things for different requirements. So you will have a control and history who is deploying what, right? And that is completely possible. And sometimes, generally, when you move from one environment to other environment, there will be some environment variables you will be using within your config file in SharePoint framework. Sometimes developers, when they change the configuration, there is a chance for mistake, right? So they may enter a variable by mistake, spelling mistake or something, right? So that is possible. So we can set all those variables as an environment variable within our build process, and at runtime we can update that value. So that is something possible with this. And then same package we can promote, right? So we can, as we can replace the values, so we can promote the values, promote the package in different environments. As I mentioned, code review and test cases also can be done. So if your solution or the build what you are giving or what it is generated by DevOps engine, if it is not matching the code review standard written by your company, then it can reject that particular build. So that is also possible with the continuous build and deployment approach. Points to consider. So the first point, app upgrade process based on app functionality. For example, let's say, let us consider WhatsApp as an app, right? There are different features given within WhatsApp app, but when you deploy that such apps in the app catalog, maybe Nilesh may like a feature, but I may not like that feature. But the third person may like all the three features or all the features given by WhatsApp, right? So generally, if you don't use the skip deployment feature property, so it is not going to be available throughout the tenant. So now the user has an option. If you go to the first diagram, here the user has an option to stay with the first version of that app when after installation. Let's say you are upgrading the app to 1.2 with some other features. This user may like it, so he can install that app and he can upgrade the app. But this user, yeah, he don't want to go with 1.2, but still he can stay with 1.1 version or one version and start using that app. So that is the difference. So if you have such requirements, maybe you should not go for tenant level deployment approach. So that's why I want you to consider this point. So the second point is what happens to the existing solution app in use. For example, you have already deployed an app that when you deployed last time, you didn't use the skip deployment property. In that case, what it is going to happen is you might have installed, or different site owners install that app in different sites. So now when you change the skip deployment feature property on, that app is going to stay as is, but you will see the app tenant wide, but it will not duplicate. So if you go to app gallery or webpack gallery, when you edit the page, you will see only one app, but you will not see duplicate. So that is what I noticed. And then the rollback process. Suppose if your organization standard in terms of coding or testing is not met when before it deploys the particular package in the environment, right? Then it is better to stop there and roll back with the previous build. So that is also something we need to consider. So without further delay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you two things. One, Azure DevOps, and the second one, what I'm going to do is with the Bitbucket pipeline. So both the options we will see. Jenkins integration I haven't done, but I'm trying to integrate with Jenkins from Bitbucket. As soon as I complete the task, maybe I will take a different session on that. But right now, as you can see here, I have a solution called Profile Completeness Meter. This is a SharePoint Framework web part. Here you will see a couple of additional tasks. So generally, you will have gulp file.js. So the remaining gulp files, whatever you see here, that is given by Elio. So he is a Microsoft MVP. This custom gulp task, you have to add it within your solution. The first one, update manifest. So what it is going to do is, this is going to update your CDN URL. For example, if you go to the config location, right, your write manifest file, there is a CDN base path you used to give, right? Suppose, let us consider your SharePoint library is your CDN. Assume your SharePoint library is your CDN. So runtime, this SharePoint tenant name may vary, or the site URL vary in development environment, QA environment, and production environment. So at runtime, you have to change this, right? Before packaging, you have to update this CDN base path. So that is what this update manifest does. So it is going to read the write manifest .json file, and it is going to update that particular path. So that is the first thing it is going to do. And then the second one, upload SharePoint task. So what it is going to do is, based on the CDN path and the variables you are going to configure, right? Username, password, CDN URL, and the library where you wanted to publish. So all this, right? So it is going to upload your assets into this library and then publish it. So that is what the second gulp task is going to do. And the third one, we have to deploy the SPP.kg file, that is our SharePoint Framework web part package, into app catalog, right? So this is the task. So what it is going to do is, it is going to get your SharePoint app catalog URL from your variable. I have configured some environment variable. I will show you where you have to configure that. So it is going to read that variable and just deploy that in the app catalog. So when you deploy, as I mentioned, you will see a pop-up to skip the deployment. So let me show you that. So this is the pop-up you will see with the checkbox, right? So we have to check this when we deploy this. So that's why what we have is this property, skip feature deployment. So based on this, it is going to deploy your app in the app catalog location. And then, yeah, so these are all the different tasks you need to deploy an app in the Office 365 tenant. So generally, these 4 tasks generally done by admin team. So we are here automating that. So to do that, if you go to Azure DevOps, so first what you need to do is you need to add this files. So suppose if you are using include assets and skip deployment, both the properties enabled in your solution, then you don't need to deploy the assets in CDN separately, right? So the task itself you can skip. That is manifest.js. So this one is not required in that case. And then uploading the file in the SharePoint CDN library, what you consider, right? So that is also not required. So the only 2 tasks you may need is to deploy your app in the app catalog and just upload the app package. So these are the 2 tasks. I will show you the difference. In the Azure DevOps pipeline, I have configured with all the 4 tasks, but in the Bitbucket, I have just configured with only 2 tasks. So that is also something I will show you. Okay, so this is what I'm doing in the Bitbucket, but in the Azure DevOps, I'm doing all the 4 tasks. So as you can see in this task created by Elio, Elio explained what all the npm packages you may need, right? So once you add these files into your solution, you may have to install some npm packages that is going to help you deploy this app at runtime. So feel free to go through this different tasks involved in this. So that will help you to understand what is happening during the deployment. So once it is done, let's say you have installed all the necessary npm packages and these gulp tasks added to it. So you are going to just register that in the gulp.js file, so that when you call this gulp task from your deployment, continuous integration and deployment pipeline, it will understand. So what I'm doing is I'm just adding these 4 files in the gulp task so that it can recognize from your continuous deployment. So as you can see here, so line number 6 to 9. So let's move on to pipelines. So as you can see here, you have a pipeline already. So I think I need to move this a little bit. Okay, so let me edit this. I have a pipeline configured already. So the first thing what we will do is, before even we configure all this, first thing we have to do is to configure some environment variables. So as you can see here, I have configured the app catalog URL, CDN library name, that is CDN is my library name, and then CDN path. This one is kind of duplicate, you don't need it. As long as you have these 2, you can manipulate that. And then CDN site URL. So a couple of variables you can just use it differently. This is just to show you. And the tenant, the admin ID and password and the tenant name. So with this, you should be able to deploy. So these are all the variables required to deploy a SharePoint Framework solution. And the second one, what we are going to do is we have to enable the continuous integration. And then from which branch you are going to pull the code, right? So that is something, right now I have master for this particular demo, but general practices like developers in development environment, they will deploy manually multiple times and verify. But when it goes to QA, right? So from development branch, you are going to create a pull request by comparing your development branch or the branch specific to a particular feature which you are going to add with the QA branch. So once it is created, the pull request is created, so your admin team is going to review that and just approve it. And then the deployment process can trigger. But here we are enabling continuous deployment. So the moment the pull request is accepted, so it is going to start the build process. But in our case, we are going to just see by editing some code in the master branch and see how it is going to deploy. But general practice is you will be creating a pull request and that will be accepted by some administrator, and then the deployment process kickstarts. And also you can schedule, as you can see here, because in an enterprise level company or in any small size company, right? So you cannot deploy at any time, right? So you will have a predefined window or schedule. So you can configure that schedule here. So maybe, for example, every 2 weeks, once in the weekend, you are going to deploy something, right? So you can configure that completely here. And then you have some options, build timeout and other things you can configure here. And then retention, so how many bills you wanted to keep. So keep for 10 days, one good bill. So all this can be configured in this. And you can also see the history when it is updated and all. Now, trigger, as I mentioned, so right now continuous integration is enabled. So let's go to the task. So here, all this, what you see, right, in the phase one, this is the first set of things going to happen. So here I'm showing everything in the continuous integration and deployment. The entire deployment, we can just isolate that from the pipeline. That means upload files in CDN, upload app catalog, package to app catalog, and deploy app. So these three things can be configured in the release. And the first 4 tasks can be configured in build. So you can isolate that. So build is something common, right? So whether you are deploying to dev environment, QA environment, or production environment, build is going to be common. And then only in the deployment side, that is the release, that is going to change where you are going to deploy. So you can isolate 2 pieces. So for this particular demo, I'm just configuring everything in one set. So the first thing what you will do is, whenever someone gives you a repository, you're going to clone that repository and install the npm packages, right? So that is what it is going to do. So it is going to get the source from your Azure repository, but you can choose any source, as you can see here. You can choose even, but Bitbucket Cloud is also there. So and also you can specify from which branch you have to take. All this can be configured. So source first you have to select, and the second thing what you will do is you will clone and install npm manually. So that is what we are doing here. So npm is the task. So here you can choose any task. See, when you click on it, there are different tasks given by Azure DevOps. So one of the tasks is npm install. So npm task. So in the npm, we are going to call install property or attribute. So this is going to install the required packages you have defined in the package.json. And then the second thing what it is going to do is you have a custom task called update manifest. What it is going to do is it is going to replace your CDN path at runtime based on the variable what you give here. So this is how you will provide your variable name, what you have declared in this section. And then once it is replaced, then it is going to create the bundle. So generally we used to call the command gulp bundle -- ship. So this is for production. So I'm going to run this command. And then once it is done, we are going to package the solution. So bundle project is going to give you the list of artifacts you need to deploy in your CDN. If you include assets, right? If you enable that property, then this may not be required. So automatically framework handles that. And then package. So this is going to give you SVB KG file. So that is the one you are going to deploy in the app catalog site. That is the SharePoint Framework web part or extension. So once the bundle and the package is ready, then we are going to upload that in the CDN. So again, this update CDN location and upload files in CDN, these two may not be required if you use include assets property in your solution. So here I'm just uploading the files that is built with this particular task in this location, right? So that is what I'm doing. So for this, we are giving username, password, tenant, and then CDN site URL. These are all the properties for this particular task or attributes. So the moment when you pass this task is going to upload all your artifacts into the CDN library. And then this task, what it is going to do is, it is going to upload your svkg file, what is created by this particular gulp task. It is going to upload that in your app, apps for SharePoint. This is the place where we will upload all our SharePoint apps. So in the app catalog, so what it is going to do is, it is going to push the app or upload the app in this library. And then you have to deploy it. Generally, you have to click the deploy button, right? So that is what this is going to do. This particular task, you just need to give the username, password, tenant, and CDN site URL. So it is going to deploy that. So these are all the tasks required to deploy an app, right? So before I get started with a build, right? Build process, let me show you my environment. So this is my Office 365 tenant. So wherein you can see I don't have any apps right now. This is the site where I'm going to deploy. So this, and the app is not there in this particular site as well. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to the repo, and let me select any one of the file. For example, let me edit this file. So I have a green, yellow, so here, so let me edit this. So this is a profile completeness meter. So it's just a simple example. I don't have any fancy code here. So it is going to show you a progress bar with the color what you configure here, right? So let me change this to red. Okay, and this one also I'll change it to red for now, and then later we will change it with some other color and see if that changes. So now the moment when I commit, since I configured the continuous integration on the master branch, it is going to kickstart the build and deployment process immediately. Let's see how it is going to happen. So I'm going to commit this. So I'm going to type in the command. I think I saved it. Let me see if it. Okay, it's not saved. Okay, let me come. Okay, so I'm going to commit this. So now let's go back to the pipeline. So as you can see, immediately a build process is kickstarted. So let's explore this. So this is from the master plan. So let me open this. Now, as you can see, it is starting the build process. Now, first it is installing the NPM packages. This is going to take a while. So let's wait for that. In the meanwhile, I'll go back to the Bitbucket pipeline. So this is different from our DevOps. So this has a build pipeline process. So the process is same. If you look at the code, let me go to the code. If you look at the code, I have a different hello kind of example. But if you look at this, I have only deploy app to app, upload app package, and then deploy. So these are all the two things I have. The reason behind that is, let me go to the config file. Yeah, package.solution. So as you can see here, I have included these two properties: include client side assets true, and skip deployment feature. So in this case, it is going to package the asset within the SharePoint CDN if it is enabled. If not, SharePoint automatically going to upload that in a library. It is an internal library, so it is going to handle, and it is going to deploy that throughout the tenant. So I have these two properties enabled in this example, which is different from the one which you just saw. Okay, so let me go back here. So that's why I just need 2 tasks instead of 4. And here in Bitbucket, to configure a pipeline, you have to create a file with extension called YML. So Bitbucket pipeline. So here what we need to do is, the first thing what you need to configure is your image, that is Node. I'm using 8.15.1. Then you have to say the steps, right? So here also you can define the build and deployment separately, but just to show you a demo, I'm doing everything in one step. So as you can see here, the same task I'm configuring. So here also you can configure your variables. So I guess somewhere here, yeah, repository variables. So as you can see here, I have configured couple of variables. So app catalog site, that is the relative path of that, and the tenant name, admin username, and password. So these are all the 4 variables I need to configure my pipeline. So that is what I have configured there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call all those variables here. So the first thing is npm install, and then we have to install the gulp, because this will not understand gulp is the gulp package. So we have to install the gulp package. So this is the only additional step you will be doing here. And then gulp bundle ship, that is to package it. And then package the solution and then deploy. So I'm just passing the necessary variables so that the task can understand and do the job what it is written inside the task. Okay, so the same process, but the pipelines are different. So it is still installing. This generally takes a little more time. Okay, so in the meanwhile, let me change something here and see. Let's go back to the code. Okay, so here I have gray color. So let me change it to blue and just commit. So I changed from gray to blue. So now if you go to pipeline, so here also the task is triggered. Now this is in Bitbucket. Okay, so the first task it's going to do is npm install. So it is going to perform all the tasks involved in this deployment process. So npm is installed now. So now it is updating the CDN location. So as you can see the detailed task here. So once it is done, it is going to package and upload the files in CDN. So you'll start seeing this slowly. Let's go to CDN libraries. So this is the first thing it is going to do. It is going to deploy the files, respective artifacts in this library. So we consider this CDN library as our CDN server. Okay, so let's wait for that. Okay, so upload files in CDN. So as you can see here, the profile completeness meter. So it is it has uploaded the files. So now the next thing is in the app for SharePoint. As you can see, profile completeness meter. It's uploaded. The other one, it's a different example which I am running from the Bitbucket. It is also deployed here. So profile completeness meter is added to this. Okay, let's go back. And yeah, so the build is succeeded now. So I should get an email as well. So if you go to SharePoint, right, let me show you from the Azure DevOps, I should get an email. Take the latest. Yeah. So this is the latest. As you can see here, this is using continuous integration. It is deployed. So you will get an email like this once it is deployed. So now let's go back to one of our page. So let me edit this page. Go to insert a part. As you can see here, I grouped by with Office with JG. So if you select this, it's going to come in red. Okay, so that's what we did. So let me save this. And now what I am going to do is I'm going to the source code again. Let's edit this. Okay, so I'm committing this so that the new build process will kickstart. So let's. So now, since I have tenant-wide deployment property enabled for this solution, I don't need to go to site contents and upgrade the app, because if you go to the site contents, you will not even see that app here, right? Because the tenant level skip deployment feature property is enabled. So that's why you're not seeing that app here. And automatically, once it is deployed, this bar should turn to green. So let's see how it happens. So as you can see in the Bitbucket as well, the task, whatever we have configured in the Bitbucket pipeline, it is working properly, and it deployed the app in the app catalog, as you can see here. So this is the second example which I wanted to show you. This app is also deployed, and there is no error in this. So let's wait for this to deploy. npm package, it is installing. So in the meanwhile, I'm done with my demo and the session. Suppose if you have any questions, let's discuss about that while it is deploying this. Maybe we can see the status afterwards.
If anyone has any question, they can type into the questions box and I will raise the questions. Or just raise your hand. You can, using the webinar tools, you can raise your hand and I will unmute you to ask the question. No questions, Joseph, as of now.
Okay, fine. So Nilesh, we'll wait for a couple of more minutes. Let's see, it is completing this task and the progress bar is changing to green.
All right.
We can close the call.
All right.
So once the npm install is done, it should be really faster. So that is the one going to take more time. But one thing just wanted to update you is this is something can be cached as well. So because this is taking more time, right? So every time we cannot keep installing the same if there is no change in the npm version, right? And the package is what you are installing. So that way you can save the time. If you look at the other task, it is going to take less than a second or seconds, not more than that. But this is the one going to take more time. So this is something can be cached. So that way, the number of minutes you spend in deploying, because I think continuous deployment is something based on the number of minutes or number of minutes you are using, right? So right now I'm using a MSDN tenant provided by Microsoft for the MEPs. So I was MEP 1 year back and just using the same MSDN subscription. They renewed it for the last year. I couldn't renew my Microsoft MEP status, so they just renewed it for 1 more year. They just extended it. So I'm just using that. So if you have MSDN subscription, I think it is 250 minutes. You can test your continuous integration and deployment in the Azure DevOps. But if you have organization account, I think you will have more time. Let's see. Last time, how much time it took? So it took nearly around 4 minutes. It changes based on, because this is not a dedicated thing. It's a free one. I'm just showing demo from. Still installing. But Nilesh, if you'd like to close the call, it's fine. But generally, what? Yeah, it's done. Yeah, I think it is going to update it.
Okay, so is your demo finished now then?
Yeah, it is about to finish. So I thought of closing the call, but the npm installation is done. So
Okay.
hopefully it will deploy quickly. Give me 1 more minute.
Okay.
So it's just deploying. So once it is done, we should be able to see in green. Yeah, as you can see here, it's completely deployed the second build, and you can see without any manual intervention, it's completely deployed in the tenant, and the latest code is reflecting. So that's all I wanted to show you guys. Thank you so much for joining. Please feel free to send me an email if you have any questions.
All right. Thanks, Joseph, for this webinar. Thanks all the participants. We close this call now. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.